Hello, 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 hello. Today on Dead by Daylight Creation Reviews, we have a very different scenario, I suppose. It's the same scenario, but from a different angle. I have a viewer who has. Please go away. Thank you. I have a viewer that has asked me about a particular perk and to review it for him. Give me 1 second. Sounds like my computer just blew out the back. That was a very interesting noise. Oh boy. No. Like I was saying, I guess I should actually pop it up on screen. Well, before I get in that, specifically, a viewer commented on my January 4th video that I did asking me to review a perk for them. I want to take a little bit of time to discuss. Well, one, I wasn't planning on posting today, so if you're like, hey, Q's here and he's kind of late, yeah, I wasn't planning on coming back, but duty calls. Sometime in the morning, I think like somewhere around 12 hours ago, I played Friday Night Funkin'. I will be trying to finish off the last couple of songs today, tonight, maybe later in the morning again. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know how long it's going to actually take. But I will be trying to finish that game off sometime soon. Those of you that want to watch, it is archived on YouTube. The underscore QTASTIC. Or just the space QTASTIC on YouTube. I do dual stream to YouTube and Twitch. That's why I said that. But yeah, everything that I do is always archived on this channel. So if you're on YouTube, bam, that's the way to do it. You can see any and almost everything that I do live. So let's hop on into this. Know what I'm saying? Now, I say now a lot, huh? Mr. Red Fox Schultz said, random question. What do you think of this killer perk idea I came up with? Brittle wood. The entity couldn't be bothered to make a few pallets, so you did your worst. 3, 4, 5 brittle pallets spawn into the map and are indicated to you with a white aura. Brittle pallets instantly break when pulled down, but have a large stun radius when they are pulled down. Survivors that pull down brittle pallets will be afflicted with the hemorrhage status effect for 5 seconds. I was thinking the larger stun radius could be anywhere from 50% to 150% as a decent payment for having these both instantly break and cause the survivor to be tracked easier. Before you mention the Spirit's perk, I'd also say that a brittle pallet won't trigger the entity to auto break anything since it isn't a pallet technically. So they only synergize by allowing you to push a chase into a brittle pallet while having Spirit freely primed for a potential second pallet, causing 2 pallets to break shortly after one another. Before I go into huge detail, there are a couple of things that I do want to point out. One, if you I got rid of that. I do invite you to go into the actual link and then click on the first link. All ideas submitted by viewers via this link. If you do, it will take you to the creation forum where you can post your ideas, and me and everybody else will generally look at them. I mean, I've gone over just about, except for these conglomerations, every single perk that I've came across for like 5 or 6 lists straight. So I probably will see a post. Now I do recognize your name, and I think you already do post on a particular creation form. At least your name is very similar to somebody else's name. The second thing that I would like to point out is the part about before you mentioned the spirits perk. I'd also like to say that brittle palette won't trigger the entity, you know, things like that. Instead of including that like that, just put at the end like you were posting for other people to see. Put it in italicized or something like that, spaced off at the bottom for all of the, you know, the knickknacks or the additional information that isn't part of the particular post. Break that off and just mention that the spirits perk won't be triggered on the brittle palettes. Because one, when I read this through the first time, I didn't even think about the spirits perk or any other person's perks about I didn't even get that far. I stopped at the 5 brittle pallets spawn into the map. Does this happen at the beginning of the match? Does this happen as pallets break and a brittle one pops up in its place? Like, does it like rekindle back into its place? How is this system supposed to be implemented? I need to know additional information on that particular portion of everything, as well as you're adding 5 additional pallet spawns to the map. Where exactly would the pallets spawn? Because generally, on the map, any areas that are usable that have pallets on them, or already have pallets on them. The game's designed with, you know, that in mind. Every set piece, everything like that has pallet spawns on them. So are you just going to add pallets in the areas where, you know, like Kill Shack? One side of the Kill Shack has a pallet. Are you just going to add a brittle pallet to the other side of the Kill Shack because it's an empty slot and make it a dual pallet setup? Or are they just going to take the place of the god pallets and things like that? That's kind of what I want to get into. Then from that information, I would like to add to that you got to think about the fact that Survive with Friends or Gank Squads, or if this is a good enough perk in general because it's extra pallets, what if an entire squad runs this particular perk? You now have to have 20 different pallet spawn locations programmed into every single map. Not that bad in a map like Midwich, but think of like the Artist's new map or Cold Wind Farm or something like that. Where are you going to go back in and post all of these pallets at? Is you're going to need like a map or a diagram of the entire maps, and you're going to have to go in and put in the work to plot those particular positions themselves. And if it doesn't take the place of an already broken pallet, then you also have the reverse aspect of all you need to do is when you're in a chase, run near a god pallet, slam it. You can efficiently use the same god pallet 20 different times if all 4 survivors are running this, or the same god pallet 5 times if you're running the particular perk. And that's where things kind of get out of control and kind of nutty, is when you multiply this out. Now, you mentioned that you wanted to have the palette effects anywhere from 50% to 150% stun range. I would like to see that out in meters. How many meters do you exactly want the particular stun range? Because as of now, the killer has to be essentially touching the pallet for the most part to even get a sort of stun. And if you're increasing that radius out to about 150%, then any killer that pallet fakes too close, respects the pallet, will end up getting stunned anyway. The 5 seconds, I think you said, yeah, the 5 seconds of hemorrhage, I guess, is like getting a splinter or something like that, but I mean, it's not really necessary. Because I mean, the killer's going to be stunned. What did you say? Let me go back through. But the killer's going to be stunned, but it's not the end of the world. Scratch marks do last for 10 seconds. So, I mean, even after stunning them with this pallet that instantly breaks, you are saving them time and breaking the pallet. So they'll go bam, they'll get a little bit of a stun, and then they'll be right back on you. I don't think you mentioned anywhere of extending their particular stun time. Pallet break and pull down. Yeah, they just have a larger stun radius, but not a larger stun timer. Yeah. You don't mention anywhere here that it's going to be a longer stun. So it's just going to be the regular base game stun animation. But I mean, the problem that you're going to have is you're allowing survivors, especially, a whole group of survivors, to essentially throw pallets the whole duration of the game and not have to, manage which pallets they're throwing, etc., etc. Another thing is, me particularly, I do not like a whole bunch of things being lit up with different ores on my screen when I'm playing Dead by Daylight. And if you have 20 different pallets spawning in from 4 different people running this, which it could become a meta perk or a commonly used perk, there's going to be a lot of ore reading. And even if you cut it down, I still have to deal with 5 different just off the wall pallets, ores being popped up. I would run windows of opportunity or something like that if I really wanted ore reading. That's just a personal gripe for me. And I say at any time there's going to be a huge amount of ore reading. So the problem becomes two. The killer isn't going to necessarily be able to continue a constant chase because they're going to be getting palleted again and again and again. Gank squads are just going to use the same god pallet if it takes the location of it, or they're just going to run around using all of the brittle pallets while they're being chased. Which, back to point one, you're going to have to plot 20 plus different pallet locations that these can spawn in. 20 plus. Because the brittle pallets will probably have to have multiple spawn locations as well, because they are an additive to the game. So, I mean, if you can make a map, I would start off with like Cold Wind Farm or a basic map that's kind of open. And pseudo design a setup to where pallets will work. Because pallets are only, X amount distance wide. So to add that to between, let's say, 2 hay bales or something, you're going to have to add extra objects and things like that for the pallet to slam across. Well, that's my number one issue. 20 different pallet spawn well, 20 plus different pallet spawn locations has to be spread across every single map that's in the game. And then again, if you are talking about these brittle pallets taking the place of other pallets, if everybody's running the same perk, bam, you pull it down, you stun the killer breaks the pallet, you loop back to it, bam, you throw it again. If you're doing it the way it takes the place of a particular pallet, I suggest you incorporate different clauses to counteract that. For example, every 20 seconds or after a pallet is broken, after 20 seconds, a new one pops back in to stop it from being exploited as much. Second clause, pallet can only replace that particular pallet one time. So you can't keep running the same infinite loop and keep getting the same, pallet drops over and over and over and over and over. Once you pallet killer, they break it, it pops up again, you break it again, and then it can no longer spawn there. It's gone. Third thing I would say about this perk is I would decrease the amount of brittle pallets that spawn in the map. Unless you can find a way to control what pallets they can spawn or what pallets they can replace, I don't think the ability to have 5 different extra pallets pop in is a good idea. Severely decrease this 5 brittle pallets. I think even at 3 being your highest, you're still asking for some trouble. Especially without the security devices to keep this perk from being abused. Also, on another note, I want to talk about unique interactions. Since the spirits perk or the killer's perks and abilities and things like that do not work on these brittle pallets, what about survivor's perks? I mean, can I smash hit a brittle pallet and still get the boost, or does you say it technically doesn't count as a pallet, so no perks at all works on these particular pallets? And if no perks at all work on these particular pallets, what about stun resistant perks? Like enduring and things like that that reduce stun time. Because I mean, you balanced it to one particular perk in general, so you're not losing value off of that particular brittle isn't triggering for like a real actual pallet. But what about the other perks that deal with pallets and stuns and things like that? Do they take effect? And that's one of the problems you're going to have by pointing out one particular perk. And that's why I say put side notes in the bottom, because you've brought this to my attention that, hey, there's other perks. I'm going to pursue that line of, yeah, you've balanced it for one perk, but what about the other, like 15 different perks that rely on stuns, pallets, action speeds, etc., etc. You're going to have to define all of those as well. So I'm going to require a huge amount of usage and also extra information before I can actually give you the 100%, review that you're looking for. As it sits now, I would have to say it's way too OP, and the hemorrhage status effect for 5 seconds is nowhere near comparable to another pallet that you could instantly pull down and stun killer with. Because refunds and things like that are a thing now, you can literally just wait till you're about to be hit and get most of these pallets stunned, especially with the increased stun radius and everything when they're pulled down. If it was a regular pallet, it'd be 50-50. Sometimes you'd get it refunded, sometimes you wouldn't. The killer would fake. Hopefully you throw it down and waste this extra brittle pallet, and then they would come and clap your cheeks. Having 5 brittle pallet spawns are good for low levels that don't really know how to play the game. They're very twitchy and they throw the first fake they get. It's good for them. But I have to go off a balance for the entire, entirety of the game. Iridescent survivors, all the way down to ash survivors, all of them. Higher level people, if you give them 5 extra pallets in the map, especially that they can exploit, they're going to use them. They're going to stop, and when that pallet either respects the pallet, they're going to continue on and continue looping them, or when the killer tries to go for it, they're going to immediately drop that pallet and stun them, and then continue on. So, you got to think about all aspects of things when you're making a perk. Again, the hemorrhage status effect isn't well met for 5 extra pallets. Because it don't matter if the survivors use them efficiently or any of that. You go base item by base item. You have pallets, 5 extra pallets, and the only negative you get for that is the hemorrhage status effect. I would balance that to where it's something a lot more impactful. So if you do want to run this perk and you have the ability to, exploit it or do things with this particular perk, especially with a group of survive with friends or gang squads and all of that, there needs to be a hey, you can get those extra pallets, but this is gonna happen to make you take a second take at the particular perk. But I mean, I can't give you any other additional information until you yourself tell me what this particular perk, is designed as, how it interacts, what it does, etc., etc. So take some time and think this out. Think about the amount of programming, the amount of spot placement, the things of new assets, the time implementation, things like that, that behavior is going to have to do in order to incorporate your perk. It's going to be a lot. It's probably take a good month or two to implement this perk. And is it worth it for one perk? You know, is it? You got to ask yourself that. Think about the game devs too. The player base. Think about the killers, the survivors. Think about the game devs. Think about the amount of money and everything else that's going to be spent on implementing your particular perk. So I hope I was able to give you some sort of insight into your particular perk. And I would really like for you to go back in, think about this, rework it, and give me all the additional information that I'm requesting. Go ahead and post it onto the creations forum. I'm still around. I'll still be doing reviews and things like that on a daily basis for the time being. And that's pretty much. I mean, there's other things that I could say, but I'm not going to go into like this huge intrepid like detail and all of this. I'm not gonna go with a fine tooth comb and go through everything for you to come back and say, oh, it doesn't work any of those ways. It actually works like this. And then everything I say be for naught. So I'm gonna hold on to my extra comments and any of that for now. And I'm just going to let the water run under the bridge and see what happens. I do like the concept of ghost pallets and things like that because it comes way down too often where somebody accidentally throws, well, not accidentally, but somebody throws kill shack pallet before they're even touched. Or god pallets will be thrown early, or different things happen. And you can see them in videos. It happens at almost every single rank. And people are just throwing pallets just to throw pallets, you know. And it's like, man, you really screwed us over there on dropping that pallet early. But there's also the perk that if you're really worried about that, where you can pick the pallets back up. If the killer don't break the pallet, you know, the kill shack pallet's generally gone whenever it drops. It's gone. There ain't really no saving it. But other pallets that are useful but ain't necessarily god pallets, you can run back over to real quickly and reset it and pick it back up so you don't lose it. So that is a thing to run that perk. And if you don't mind taking a hit, you can drop the pallet and pick the pallet back up if you have to use the pallet. But I mean, that kind of defeats the purpose of throwing the pallet in the first place if you drop it, then pick it back up immediately after. Anyway, I guess since I have time, why not jump over and do a small module? Did the ghost face have an add-on rework? I voted yes. It somehow managed to get perfectly 33% all the way through. I think I went over this yesterday. The reason why I think Ghostface should have a add-on rework. Ignore all of this. Ignore all of this. I don't agree with this at all. But I think Ghostface in general should have an add-on rework because all of his stuff does is increase your crouching speed. You increase crouching speed. You increase marking and stalking or marking speed. You increase that speed. You increase that speed. You increase that speed. For the most part. Now there are, you know, some good ones that you get that are farther up the chain. But for the most part, it's like Ghostface's crouching speed is already adequate as it is. If you really want me to force me to use add-ons, which I don't run add-ons on my Ghostface or anything like that unless I get a challenge or something that warrants it, and I need that extra boost. I don't run add-ons in Ghostface. Then I still manage to get, you know, 4 kills or 3 and an escape in a hatch. For the most part. Or I just let everybody go because I downed them way too easy. There's those games too. I don't know if I ever showed them on stream where I down people and then I let them go. And then I down them again and let them go. Kind of keep that fear factor to the game, but not ending their run. That's what I like to do. I like to sneak around as Ghostface, pull people off generators, come out of nowhere, hit people, you know, really scare them. Maybe miss a couple of easy hits to make them say, oh my god, he was so close to hitting me, you know, get that adrenaline running. And then when they do get down and it's their last hook, I generally let them go or take my time getting to the hook so they escape, or if somebody's by a pallet, you know, letting them get that pallet slam to make them think they actually did something to continue the play. Now, if you're gonna gen rush me, you know, I'm going to specifically target people that are gen rushing. But if you're wanting to have, you know, a horror experience, I'll take my time and give you the horror experience. If you're not just gonna hop on gens and try to get out as quick as possible. If you're gonna try to get out, then I'm gonna try to get, you know, a couple of hooks to get my rank up, or at least get that safety pip. And then you can go on your way, you know. You're obviously not here to mess around or have any fun. You're just here to either get your rank back to where it was, or that's just all you know is gen rush, gen rush, gen rush. Which, depending on the killer, I do sometimes gen rush strategy. My standard strategy is gen rush till I get to a comfortable place. Then we can mess around. But you know, just in case Killer has something planned and starts clapping people out of nowhere, I don't want to mess around when there's 5 gens left. You know what I'm saying? We can mess around when there's like 2 gens left. So when somebody gets clapped, we can immediately finish gens and get out of here. You know what I'm saying? I want that safety net, you know? Especially if it's a Michael Myers and he's messing around and things like that, because you never know when he's stalking for that Judith Tombstone and then just picks everybody up and ends everybody's career right then and there. Yes, I'm speaking from experience. We thought this Michael was cool. We were running around, we were all having a fun time doing circles, teabagging, dancing, and all of that. Then he picks up Big Judy with the big booty, ends her whole career, and all of us just look at each other like, man, we messed up. And one by one, he picked us up and sent us on our way. When cool was not cool anymore. So now I go off the basis of a safety net. Now, this, I guess I should read because it's just to respect the poster. Fergusator says, I've been thinking for a while now. Since since Ghostface has some boring red add-ons, why don't the devs rework one of them? If the killer equips the add-on, he will be able to mori any survivor they stalked and successfully put into the dying state. However, the stalk rate will be 3 times slower, and the survivors will be able to cancel your ability like before the Ghostface got buffed, which I think was 1 second. It is a terrible idea. Do you know how many survivors I stalk on a regular basis? Well, used to stalk on a regular basis. I ain't played the game in like a week or two now. I've been busy. But how many survivors I stalk, either all the way to 100% or 99%, and they don't even know that I'm stalking them. There's so many nooks, crannies, cracks in windows, things like that that you can use to your advantage. And it stalks for quite a bit of distance. You could easily get this prime. It ain't like Michael Myers, who has to be standing there, essentially looking at you, or exposed for the most part. Yeah, you can kind of peek around the wall, but they're gonna see your body as you're doing that. Ghostface leans, and you can just get a huge buffer, especially while you're leaning, to mark somebody extremely quickly. 3 times the speed, ain't no way that is enough to be able to just straight up knock somebody down and then mori them. I'm against mini moris. I'm against it completely. Pyramid Head has the exception of, well, you shouldn't have stepped in the trail. That's what got you moried. Spirit has the exception of, well, you know you're the obsession. So go to the exit gate and wait when there's like one generator done. So you can hurry up and start getting out because you know she's on her way. Whatever side of the map she's on, you go to the exit gate on the opposite side and you hold and you pray that you get out as quick as possible. So, I mean, Pyramid Head, you're doing it to yourself. Spirit, there's counters to that. Have other survivors or another survivor follow you if it's an SWF. Have him take hits for you. Only thing he can do is get hooked. You go down, you're done, son. And besides that, I mean, besides like Michael Myers, which takes forever to actually get the Judith's Tombstone. And if you do get the Judas Tombstone charges all the way up, generally you won't get all 4 survivors unless they're screwing around doing other things in the map. It takes forever. Even the best players in the world, in order to get that Judas Tombstone, they generally only get like 1, maybe 2 people. It is very hard to get the 4K on knowledgeable survivors. Now, if they're Now, if they're plebes or plebs, whichever one you prefer, and they're running around doing things, teabagging, showing butt, and just letting you get that stock charge, then that's another story. Whoever does that, they're screwing over their team and letting you get your power early. That's on them. But 3 times the speed on Ghostface ain't that much of a nerf for the ability to Mori. I'd say probably like 10 times the speed. And maybe you would have an argument there because the lean speed stock is ridiculously fast. And if you run this particular add-on for one, you can also put on another add-on that allows you to stock faster. So that 3 times will essentially be like what? 2 times, maybe 1.5 times at the end. And you can literally just Mori people from the start. It should take a significant amount of time, like 60 seconds worth of lean stocking to get rid of particular well, I mean, not like actually 60 seconds. I'm over exaggerating for those of you that are like, what the hell, bro? Obviously, I'm over exaggerating just to, prove a point that it should be a large amount of time to get the mini Mori. Because if you think about it, it needs to be because to end a survivor, stalking time, lean stock time, it takes like what, like 5 seconds or something like that. It's extremely fast. I'm not gonna look it up because I am actively doing killer reviews. When I get the ghost face, I'll get all that information anyway, so there's no point in looking it up now and then having to go back through later on. But it's extremely fast, like 5 seconds. So in order to end a survivor's career, you have to successfully lean stock them 3 times, which is like 15 seconds or something crazy like that. It's very fast. So taking that into account, regular time it's 15 seconds. So in order to Mori somebody, you should be looking at the minimum like 30 seconds worth of stock time because you can stock them while you're in chase, you can stock them, lean stock them while they're on generators, you can stock them at all particular times. So at the bare minimum, it should be double just to Mori them because you're putting in the amount of time. Plus, you have chase time and things like that that are going to be additive in between each and one of those, travel time, chase time, all of that. You're cutting out. So you need to add in about zero point 0.5 seconds of all of that chase time into the lean stock. And I'm not going to do the math to get this super precise number, but you will have to do quite a bit of math to get this set. Also, I hate when people use the term 3 times slower, or 150%, or 3,000%, or he does things 3 times faster. Okay, and that speed is. This is something that you are presenting to the world. Put the finite numbers, put both 150% or, I don't know, 6.9 meters per second, whatever 150% of speed is. Put both if you have to, but I want to know the 6.9 meters per second so I know the speed that you're moving at. I don't care if it's 150%, you know? Yeah, 150% means, yeah, you're going to go, 1.5 faster times faster than a survivor. Cool. That don't help me when I'm reviewing actively. I need to know the exact information. I need it down to the nitty gritty if you want an accurate assessment. Now, I can give you a, estimated assessment. 150% times, a survivor speed. For every 1 second, you're going to get, 1.5, or 150, or you're going to get 50% distance on them per second. For those of you that understand are going to be like, yep, but there's no numbers there for you to see. So for every second, you're going to gain 50% speed or 50% distance on that survivor when they're moving at, if the killer moves at 150% speed. That's just words on words on words. It's a lot of word play. But if I don't give you an actual number, it can either sound underpowered, it can sound overpowered. It's like, what? You're gaining, 50% distance on survivor per second? That's ridiculous. You'll catch them in like 2 seconds if you take it literally, or you could be like, understand what things are coming from and be like, okay, so he's moving at like 6.9 meters per second or whatever 150% speed is. So, when I go in and I say you need to explain everything, I mean everything. If your killer sneezes before they do a particular action, I need to know how long that particular sneeze is. If your killer trips, I want to know how long the tripping animation is, like all of that. I want to be able to accurately, in my mind, picture running with your killer, using your killer's abilities, and things like that, and be able to recreate a scenario. Like, what was it, Will from Hannibal does? And then end with, this is my design. Like, I want to be able to just recreate all of that. The Mentalist? Is it the Mentalist that did that too? Recreates crime scenes, things like that. That's what I want to do. And the more that I can recreate your particular killer or your concept or survivor or whatever you want to throw out, the more I can recreate them, the more I can see the usability of the particular power, the more I can see the exploit, the more I can see where the particular killer's lacking in power and could need a buff and or that it's fine and balanced. this this is an example of what I'm talking about. Maybe a hacker killer within a new perk, systematic failure. Combine both of these together. Why are they separate? Post your killer afterwards. Say, here's also another perk that I could throw in, or just create a survivor and come up with 2 other additional perks. Write this perk down on a notepad or something, save it to your desktop or something. When you think of 2 other perks, add them to that notebook and then add it to its own post as a new survivor instead of posting things as they pop into your mind. This creation forum isn't a notebook or a storage place just for every small idea that pops into your head. This is more for, more polished ideas. And now, like I said the other day, anybody that has multiple posts, both of these had better go into high detail. So if this one ain't in high detail, I'm just going to click out of the post and I'm not going to go over it. Again, very small. You've posted 2 posts, which could have been posted together. And now, because of that, I'm not going to go over your post. Not going to happen. You would have combined it together and not done all of that. And most of his posts were the pictures that he posted, by the way. His posts are like 2 sentences long. The pictures is it. That's it. What time we at? 44 minutes. I might as well do the last 2. It's kind of late, but This is kind of a special. New killer concept, The Baroness by Etsuhara. Pause if you want any of the lore. Not the girl the Baroness said that she'd listed at her house. The handmaid scattered, exposing a small shaking girl. Oh boy. You disgusting filth, I'm going to kill you all. Attacks and abilities. What an interesting thing. Weapon, barbed wire flogger. So it's a barbed wire whip, essentially. It's got the little thing at the end of it. The Baroness has 2 zones of her in one. Okay, that's just weird, but okay. In close proximity, it's a regular attack. In front of that proximity, a hit will be a barbed attack, hurting healthy survivors and applying deep wounds to wounded survivors. The Baroness has no lunge. Instead, a lunge will extend the range of her barbed attack by the same amount a lunge would extend the regular attack. So she has a lunge. Because that's all a lunge does, is give you a lot of speed for a short amount of time. But instead of her using that particular lunge, she just throws her whip farther. It's the same thing, but you just said it in a different way. So my question is why would they take the time to develop your killer this way when they have a template that they can just copy and paste to a model that's made and just make her use a regular lunge? 2, we're not even talking about powers here. You're saying that you hit the survivor, they go from the healthy state to the injured state. You hit a survivor again, they get the deep wound status effect by base attack. It has nothing to do with power. That's just how it is. All right. If you want to nerf your particular killer, I mean, that's fun. Just keep in mind that if you have any powers or anything down here past this that relies on the deep wounds, I'm going to nullify them and make them non-existent because you're applying deep wound status effect without incorporating it into your actual power. So anything below here that relies on deep wound status effects, I'm nullifying before I even go through this because your primary attack applies deep wounds. Power. Release the hounds. Hounds, huh? The Baroness got 3 hounds at her disposal. Has 3 hounds at her disposal. 3 charges. When in a survivor, oh my, we going deep. We talking about elbow deep, balls deep, foot deep. How deep we going? When a survivor is in sight and within range, what is that range? What is the range? This is what I'm talking about. When a survivor is in sight, what is the sight? What is the range? Sight and range is essentially the same thing as well. I need a distance there. Holding mouse 2. Now we're saying mouse 2. You said regular attack up there. Now you're saying mouse 2. It's the power button. I mean, we're back to elementary now. Well, lock on to them and start feeling a progress bar. This lock on will not break if really you're too lazy to put line of sight, is lost. This whole concept is just pure laziness. And it gets lazier and lazier as this rotates. If you don't have the temperance and the dedication to complete your own work, go back in, check it for mistakes, go back in, clean it up, define everything, then don't submit it. It can either die in your archive, which means it wasn't never meant to see light of day, or you can go back to it at a later date and then post it when you have everything added. Don't submit half completed things like this. Take the time and take the respect. No, and take that dedication that you feel when you have it and then add on to it little by little. If it takes you a year to get this done, so be it. You know, if you start it and then 6 months later, you say, oh yeah, I remember this. I should work on it again. It is what it is. But at least you're not putting out some, half complete concept that don't make a lot of sense. At this time, also, the moment you lock onto a survivor, this progress bar fills. But even though you lose line of sight, you still stay locked on. So what you're saying is your killer's view or your killer is going to be stuck looking at wherever this survivor goes. And you're going to try to have to navigate over to them to find out where they are. Once players, learn the maps to enough to increase the skill cap and everything like that, or the skill ceiling, the prodigy players that'll use that knowledge as well, knowing where the survivor is at all times, will be able to navigate through the map and essentially get to survivor and down survivor. Well, I wouldn't even say down survivor, but inflict injury on survivor, because you go from injury to deep wound. Two, why is there a progress bar? If you're going to be locked onto them automatically, regardless if you lose line of sight or anything like that, why use a progress bar? You might as well just ship it like the artist's crows, or make it like a stalking ability, so you actually have to work for your actual power. Anyway, when the progress bar is filled, she can release her hounds, up to 3, depending on how many survivors she locked on to. So you can lock on to multiple survivors. So this lock that you're giving is going to be, I'm assuming, like a symbol or something that appears on the survivors. So you can run around naturally, but these locks that you're applying to survivors are just going to stay there. If that's the case, why would I ever use the hounds? If I know exactly where these survivors are going, because there's no cooldown of saying that it will, the skill or the lock on will go away. There's nothing saying that it goes away. So I can lock on to every single survivor and I'll know exactly what they're doing throughout the entire day or the entire trial. If they try to window fake me, go around the wall, do any of that craziness, I know exactly where they are. So I'll just be able to clean house. If I get stunned or something like that, they're still locked. I'll just go back up and do whatever I need to do. Obviously, that's broken, because then all you need to do is run any type of speed perks, because you don't need to have most of the meta perks like barbecue and chili and things like that people occasionally run. You can use Ruin to just bop people off of generators that they're doing. Very good. And then you can run a set of speed perks and things like that. And I mean, the builds on these would be extremely unique because you're getting rid of the ability to have to run anything that monitors gens because you'll know exactly where they are. So again, why would I even summon hounds when I can just log on to every survivor and know where they are throughout the entire trial? But let's see. Depending on how many survivors she locked on to, and the hounds will start to follow / trace the survivor's movement for 10 seconds. When within reach of the survivor, the hound will lead towards them. If the hound hits a survivor in a healthy state, they will lose the health state. If the hound hits a survivor, a wounded survivor, it'll apply the deep wound status effect on them. You obviously don't know how to use the deep wound status effect. You don't get it. You do not get it. The follow trace and all of that for 10 seconds. How fast do the dogs move is my question. Because if they don't move fairly fast when they're tracing or tracking the survivors, in that 10 seconds worth of time that they're running, the survivors are going to always be getting distance. Can these hounds hop windows? Can these hounds go under or over pallets? What are the abilities of these hounds? If I see a hound coming at me and I know I can just hop a window and the hound can't really get to me, then it's going to be very easy to get rid of these hounds. A lot more information's needed on this particular concept. You're also essentially just taking the artist's idea and you're making it a tracking ability instead of a prediction ability. An AI is going to have to be made for each one of these hounds, especially if they're going to trace, in parentheses, the survivor's movement. That's movement for movement. So if a survivor runs, spins a circle, and then runs, the dog's going to run after them, spin that same circle, and continue on after them. One of the important things of what is the dog's movement? What's their active movement? What can they do? If they can hop windows and avoid pallets and all of that, then I need to know, well, one, that's going to be kind of OP if they can hop pallets, and windows is questionable or arguable. Pallets is just BS, because if I drop a pallet on your dog, they should go away. Also, does a flashlight affect them? Are they light burnable? I mean, what exactly happens? Then, if a hound hits a survivor, they lose a health state. Or a healthy survivor, they lose a health state. If they hit a wounded survivor, they get the deep wound status on them. So if you use your regular attack on them, they get the deep wound status effect after the second hit. If you use your dog on them when they're healthy, they get the deep wound status effect on the second hit. If the hound hits a survivor afflicted with the deep wound, they will pin the survivor down and start a short struggle phase with a skill check in the end. Missing the skill check will restart the struggle, hitting it will release you. Then, when they're in the deep wound status effect, you're just held in place. Which is what I thought you were going to do in the beginning, instead of having it afflict health states and all of that. Just have it hold the survivor in place. Like other concepts that I've read that were similar to this. That's what I was waiting on, is the hold you in place part. If the Baroness picks up the survivor when they are pinned down, also, Why pin down? Most dogs are trained to just go up and grab your arm and either hold you in place or they will, I guess they can hold you down by the arm as you're laying down on your stomach and things like that. But I mean, most dogs aren't police dogs and know that much. They just either bite you in the throat or they grab you by your arm and they pull on you to keep you, stationary. Anyway, if the Baroness picks up the survivor when they are pinned down, the hound charge will be refreshed. If the hound misses or if it doesn't reach them in time, that dog will go into cooldown. How long is the cooldown? A survivor can only be chased by one hound at a time. Passive, Scent of Blood. For each survivor with the deep wound status effect, the Baroness will get a stack of Bloodlust. Nope. As I said before, all of that's going to be nullified because your basic attack goes from a regular attack to a deep wound effect. So now you're going to have this Baroness that just applies deep wound status effects like Legion without a power and just goes through hitting people, gets a Bloodlust effect, goes through, downs them again, you know? Hit him once healthy, hit him twice, get the deep wound status effect, gets Bloodlust. And if they play their cards right, they can have Bloodlust 3 the entirety of the time. And from that Bloodlust 3, just down a survivor, and then zoom back through and get other survivors. So no, Central Blood passive? Absolutely not. You lost the ability to add these in. If this was caused only by your dogs, okay. But it's not. No. This concept, not only does it not have a lot of information, you spent more time on this actual long drawn out lore than you did on the actual power and attacks and all the abilities. And it's a shame. Why would anybody play a killer that takes 3 hits to down a survivor? Ask yourself that. You should have asked yourself that. Why? Why would anybody use my particular killer? 3 hits to down a survivor, and if you hit a survivor and then immediately apply a dog after them, they're just going to go into the deep wound status effect. And then the dog's going to disappear. So you can't just slap and then combo with the dog to hold them in place. No. You have to hit them twice, which should be a down. You have to hit them twice and then send the dog after them. Not how that's supposed to work. You essentially tried to make a legion, a very, very, very bad legion that has a ranged attack. It's not a very well thought out concept. You're using things that you don't understand, being the deep wound status effect. You're not using it right. There are 4 different, well, yeah, technically 4 different states, but there's 3 main states. There's 3 states, and then there's the status effect. Let me be literal with this. Healthy, completely fine, injured, 1 hit, dying, down on the ground. Throughout those stages, you can apply the deep wound status effect on a particular survivor. Generally, you'll want to do it after the first hit, not after the second hit. It doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. Hurting healthy survivors. For the first hit, applying the deep wound status effect to a wounded survivor. And then there's a down. I don't know if you, maybe English isn't your first language and you're trying to say on your second hit you apply the deep wound status effect. And maybe I'm not understanding. But if I read this how it's literally pulled out here, and then as you say it here, if a survivor, if a hound hits a wounded survivor, it will apply this deep wound status effect on him. Both of those dictate that on the third hit, which shouldn't be a thing, is the deep wound status effect when it's applied. Instead of getting that down. So if I am wrong, I apologize, but I'm wrong based off the fact that your wording is making it seem like the survivor can take 3 hits in this particular scenario as opposed to the 2 that makes them go down. I would like that clarified. Go back in through all of this and add in all of the information. Don't be lazy. And don't say that dog will go into a cooldown. A cooldown of what time? The bar charges. How long does the bar charge? Does it regress? Does it stay there the entire time? You know, actually, I would rework everything. The power, the attack, all of this. I would rework all of this and try to give your killer some sort of use. Perks double edge. When culling the weak, the others will grow stronger by pressing the active key. I'm assuming the active ability button. On a generator, the killer can instantly complete it. The remaining progress then be redistributed between 1 to 3 random generators. Are you just making a meme killer that essentially gives survivors free wins? Is this what I'm getting you? Is literally just a meme. This whole thing is a meme killer that gives survivors free wins. That you're asking the devs, you have the audacity to ask the devs to put in this meme killer. Hey, Dead by Daylight devs, will you implement my meme killer so I can give people free wins and make everybody iridescent rank, even though they don't necessarily deserve it? Why would you ever want to instantly complete a generator and then give the remaining progress of the particular generators to all the other active or inactive generators? That is one of the dumbest things I think I've ever heard in my life. I was having patience up until this point, but no, that's dumb. There is no double-edged sword. It's not, you can complete the generator, but the progress of the generator that's completed, the rest of the generators on the map get regressed that much. No, no, no. This is, you press the button to complete it, and whatever remaining progress gets added to the generators. Or are you trying to backwards say what I just said in another strat? I guess the third way I could look at this is that it adds progress to other generators. So let's say there's 50% left on a generator. You can complete it, but then the 50% time will be added to 3 random generators. So if there's a generator at 98% and it hits it, it now has to do 40 more seconds worth of things. Is that what you're trying to say? Because if that's the case, you're not even changing anything. You're not changing the game at all. This perk's redundant. That's the second way I can spin it, and his perk does nothing. If you can complete a generator, like let's say at the start of the game, you walk over to 3 generators and you complete them, bing, 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 and you add the 80 seconds to 3 other generators, 3 random generators. You're just making it to where they have to complete those generators on one particular gen setting. The only way you would get any progression out of that perk is if at the beginning of the game you went over to every single generator and click them all except for the 3 gen situation. Then those 3 gens, you'll either have one super stack gen or all the progress of all the other gens that you completed up to that point, which would be 4. You would have, what, 8 times 4? 320 seconds worth of time distributed between those 3 generators. I guess it doesn't say redistributed evenly. It just says redistributed. So you would have 3 generators, each taking 320 seconds times 3. So almost 1,000 seconds. If I take everything that it says literally. Let me explain that again. Pressing the active ability button on the generator instantly completes it. The remaining progress will then be redistributed between 3 random generators. Doesn't say equally. So if I take this literally, word by word by word, if I complete a generator for the survivors, that 100% is going to go to 3 generators. So 3 generators on the map automatically is going to take 160 seconds to complete. So from that 160 seconds, you hit it again, 3 other generators is going to have an 80-second, time added to it. And if you do all 4 generators, you end up coming up to something ridiculous around like 1,000 seconds per generator, because it's the remaining time. If I complete a generator that has, 160 seconds, and I complete that generator again, 160 seconds is being added to 3 different generators. And that can stack and stack and stack and stack. Till you get to a 3 gen situation where all the 3 gens are eventually going to get hit by this bomb of the last thing that you click on, of just a huge amount of progress. Unless you get like the 1 in 1,000 chance of all of them going to that 3 gen situation, and you're not getting that stacking effect. But you would still, that's still 4 generators times 8, so that's still 320 seconds minimum that you could get on the particular generators, even if you had a bad roll. I guess if you got like the 1 in a million chance, you could still add an extra 80 to all 3 generators. One would be stacked to the wazoo. The other 2 would have an extra 80 seconds. So regardless of which way you spin it, it's either useless or it's severely overpowered. So there you go. You also need to add a limit to it if you're going to make it the useless way. It needs to only work once per trial. If I want to force a 3 gen situation, and I want to give those gens extra time, redistribute it evenly for 1. So if I run across the map and I complete the second to last generator that needs to be complete, and I set up the 3 gen situation because that's how they have their crap distributed, those other generators will now take 25.3 extra seconds each, or 25.33333 repeating seconds each on top. So you're looking at 105.3 seconds on each one of those last three gen situations. Obviously, way too overpowered. But you can spin that in some way with a little bit of editing and some public test beta and, you know, a lot of work being put into it to make it a usable perk. Me personally, I would just like to see it that you can instantly complete a generator, but for 40, 50, 60 seconds or something like that, a random generator in the map gets blocked for that amount of time. Obviously balanced with more passives and things added to it to make it a usable perk, but that's just the base. Hex Isolation. While Hex Isolation is active, there can only be one survivor working on a gen at a time. If another survivor tries to help the generator, it will explode and start to regress. You need to work on your wording. If English isn't your first language, I kind of understand, but you need to work on your wording. If you hadn't added in the second part of this, if another survivor tries to help the generator, it explode and regress, then I would essentially think that only one survivor could work on a gen throughout the entire trial. But because you added in this second part of information, I understand cooperative actions cannot be done on generators. Hello, Red Fox. I will read your comment in a second. um, this perk, isolation, is kind of counterintuitive. And I'd have to say I wouldn't give it a check of approval based off one thing. You are forcing survivors to gen rush you. You actually want survivors to be stacking on generators. Because the more survivors that work on a generator, the less efficient it is. If two survivors are working on the same generator, it's going to take 44 seconds, which is 4 seconds of efficiency lost. Then those survivors have to travel to another generator and work on that together, which is going to take another 44 seconds plus travel time. So you're already 8 seconds plus travel time wasted, whether in those two different survivors were working on separate generators. In 88 seconds, both of those gens would pop. Bam. So you're actually forcing the survivors to gen rush you, which is not what you want to actually happen in this particular situation. If anything, you would want to pseudo make survivors work on gens together. It's going to be a very hard balance to do, but I mean, you know, giving them like a repair speed penalty or something like that, that's obviously balanced. So they don't have to, but you know, it's going to take extra time if they work on it by themselves. Might work. Obviously, this is just off the top of my head. It doesn't have any type of balance or anything like that because I haven't had time to think about it. But that's my 2 cents on hex isolation. Right. I know I'm a bit late to this. I wasn't expecting you to even show up. I do appreciate it, but I wasn't expecting you to show up to it. I figured you'd catch it whenever you could. But I have to point out one thing you thought that was completely wrong. It would be a killer perk, meaning the killer equips it. unaware of what you're talking about. Let me go over vengeance, and I'll go back to that. Vengeance. The pain inflicted by others will strengthen you and want to come. Getting stunned by any means gives a token up to 3. Next time you pick up a survivor and you are stunned or blinded, you will not drop the survivor, instead lose a token. This obviously goes against the core mechanic of the game. You are making it to where, I mean it's anti-gank squad, or anti-flashlight save, or anti-stuns, or anti-anything. You get punishment, or you get punished as a killer for not being vigilant. If you're going for immediate pickups after you down a survivor and you're getting flashlighted all the time, that is on you for not checking around. That's on you for not doing a small loop or anything like that, or even faking the pickup to try to get somebody to come out into the open. You should not be punishing survivors for, using that game mechanic to their advantage. Because if you get rid of the ability to save survivors, then once they go down, that's it. They can't use power struggle, they can't flashlight you, they can't use flashbangs, they can't do anything. It also rewards the killer for being stunned and for playing bad. You don't want to reward a killer for playing bad and punish the survivor for playing good. That's not too good. It's not savvy. So, who would like to point out a thing that was completely wrong? It would be a killer perk, meaning the killer equips it. I mean, it says killer perk on the particular video. Was it this one? In the comment. Oh, you're saying that it's a killer perk, not a survivor perk. Well, this makes absolutely no sense to me. Oh, you does say killer perk idea. Yeah, so I reviewed it as a survivor perk, which makes sense even though it's a killer perk. So, alright, we'll go back through it. That's my mistake. So, spree spinning this as a killer perk, brittle wood. The entity couldn't be bothered to make a few pallets, so you did your worst. 3, 4, 5 brittle pallets spawn into the map and are indicated to you with a white aura. Brittle pallets instantly break when pulled down, but have a larger stun radius when they are pulled down. Survivors that pull down brittle pallets will be afflicted with the hemorrhage status effect for 5 seconds. Okay. Gotcha. Well, going back over this again and taking it from the killer's perspective, this is obviously a little broken for survivors. Because let's say, for instance, a god pallet or something like that turns into a brittle pallet. They're no longer going to get the boost, the boons from god pallets. And God Pallet isn't a term in the actual Dead by Daylight game. There isn't, God Pallet spawn. So you can't just say that, no, this can't affect God Pallets or anything like that. It just picks 5 random pallets. I'm going to assume, which I shouldn't be, that these 5 brittle pallets will take place of regular pallets in the map. Yes? And not just add them in, since it's for the killer side. If it does add in 5 more pallets, then, I mean, the same thing still states that I said earlier about the pallet spawns and things like that. But it's only 5, well, 5 plus pallet spawns as opposed to 20. If it takes place of pallets and turns regular pallets into brittle pallets, I would like for you to go back in the definition of this particular perk and state, like, like scorch hooks at the beginning of a match. Hooks are turned into scorch hooks at the beginning of the match. 3, 4, 5, or however many brittle pallets or pallets are turned into brittle pallets at the beginning of the match. State how the perk actually work instead of just saying that brittle pallets spawn until the map. If that makes sense. I would like to see that the terminology and all of that be explained, straight down. But after that, I mean, you are taking 5 pallets and turning them into brittle pallets. Brittle pallets meaning that the same thing. If a survivor pulls them down early, which I'm going to assume there's no difference, because there's no terminology saying that the pallets look any different, or there's not any noticeable change. They're not a different color or anything like that. So survivors aren't going to particularly know that the pallets are brittle. So any survivor just dropping pallets regularly aren't going to know that they have that particular longer stun radius. So when they drop them and the killer just stands there and the pallet explodes, they're not going to know what the hell happened. And they're just going to get success or consecutively clapped, picked up, and sent to the Shadow Realm. So you definitely need to alert survivors that, yeah, you're about to get clapped if you don't get this pallet stun, or to just continue running on and not to use that brittle pallet. The hemorrhage status effect, again, still isn't balanced for the particular perk. The survivor's already losing the pallet, bang, it's disappearing. And then for them to have the hemorrhage status effect on top of that, that's 2 positive for the killer and 0 for the survivors. Because the pallet is brittle, which means it's essentially going to be lighter and explode as pulled down, you need to give the survivor some sort of balanced effect. That I'll leave up to you. Just keep in mind, if you want to add like a haste status effect, there needs to be a balance percent added to it or anything like that. They need something that gives them a little bit of value, because these brittle pallets are essentially going to mean insta downs. Higher level players will just vacuum the stuns. It don't matter what kind of pallet they're messing with. They're easily going to be able to pull stuns whenever they want stuns. New players ain't going to know. They're just going to see that they pulled a pallet down. They're going to watch their favorite streamer, see that everything's, hunky-dory. They're going to pull a pallet down to try to save themselves, and the pallet's going to explode. And they're going to be like, that's not how that's supposed to happen, as they're getting clapped. Also, I would make these 3 to 5 brittle pallets activate on a trigger. You definitely need triggers, whether it's a scourge hook trigger or a token trigger, or you have to do some sort of action on a trigger. Like if you get stunned by a regular pallet, another pallet turns brittle or something. It just needs something. Obviously, what I said ain't necessarily savvy, because it makes no sense for a random pallet in the map to turn into a brittle pallet because you got stunned by another one. But you know what I'm saying? It was just an example of a trigger that it needs. It shouldn't just be there from the start. It's more like it should be a reward that you can pull off. But like I said, killer side, it is a lot more unique than survivor side. I was thinking at first, like, man, why would I ever want a brittle pallet when I can throw the pallet and then, slide over it and slide over it again and run killer around? But if it's killer side, then it makes more sense because, breaking the pallet's now gone out. That little bit of time that you would stay stunned, that's just the end of it. There's no getting stunned and then breaking pallet afterwards. So you can immediately get back in the chase. Which is another reason why the hemorrhage status effect really ain't doing much. If anything, a brittle pallet, when it breaks, should kick up dust that goes into the killer's eye or something like that and blinds them for a little bit of time. Around about the same amount of time it takes them to kick the pallet, or something like that. But I mean, the perk's not bad as it's presented. I would just add some triggers or add it as a reward instead of, as soon as you spawn in, bam, you get this effect. And survivors just kind of have to deal with it. Definitely find a way to indicate to a survivor that, hey, this pallet's jacked up as they're running towards it. So, I mean, you can make it like a black palette, you can make it a white palette, you can change the color, but it has to be something, apparently obvious. Or it's going to have to be changed to a different kind of perk, like a hex perk or something like that, that shows, brittle wood in the side so they know that, hey, some of our palettes are jacked up, and then have some sort of effect on the palette. Anyway, any kind of way like that. Hopefully, you're kind of picking up what I'm putting down. If you post this particular thing, after you go through, clean it up, do all that into the actual creations forum, there are a lot of people that will view it. There's a couple of people, because I know like Critty and Cordy, and well, me, sometimes Galanonim, will go through and comment on posts and things like that about perks. Critty can be a little harsh, but he means good in the end. He means good. Just kind of take what he says with a grain of salt. He gives you a lot of information. He just don't say it in the nicest way. But yeah, makes a whole lot more sense on killer side. And I don't know why I went on survivor side, but hey, if you ever thought about making it a survivor perk, there you go. You got killer and survivor review, both sides. All right. So I'm hoping I at least answered some of your questions or at least assisted you in some way. Sorry if my English is broken or don't make sense. Thank you for reading. I don't mind broken English. I just need to clarify an explanation of the perk, and if I don't understand how the perk works, which obviously on Red Fox's post, I can't read English that well either. So, tit for tat, friend. It's tit for tat. Said if I can't understand it, I'll just go off of every aspect of what it can say and or mean, and I'll just spin it from there. Where are we up to? About an hour and a half. Let's see. Killer's Dark Fantasy Collection. Oh my. Oh, it's this one. The AI created art. Very unique post. If you ain't seen it, definitely go to the forum, type in Killers the Dark Fantasy Collection if it's not up in the main screen, which it should be. It's just AI generated art based off the killers in Dead by Daylight. Like the Trapper, this is what the AI depicted from it. Very interesting thing. Why is it saying new? I thought here we go. Oh, this is Realms. That's Killer and that's Realms. Gotcha. Why not? We can end the stream with a little art thing over the Realms. This is one of the best AIs I've seen. Holy schling. Most of these are actually comprehensible. Also, fair warning. As I understand it, Wombo sells or is going to sell these AI generated artworks as NFTs. What is with people and selling NFTs nowadays? I made it around to sort in another section of AI created work, this time themed around the various realms in Dead by Daylight. It's less morbid, mostly, but still abstract yet. I'm impressed how well it interpreted the themes given, how I can see how it worked to create something that's recognizable. Anyway, here's the collection. So we have Realm, Cold Tower. This seems to be a lighthouse. Looks to be like a lighthouse off the side of a cliff and things like that. Got a couple of what seems to be mountains in the background, things like that. Very high-rise tower. Not too shabby though. I kind of like it. I don't know what this portion right here is. It looks like a bunch of like ships or something. I don't know. Or rocks coming out of the top. Maybe it's where the coal storage is. They just set it right on top of everything. Not bad. Pretty accurate. Realm. Groaning Storehouse. I mean, looks like something out of an anime horror. Like one of those rooms you walk into. You got a little entryway leading to the pathway. There's a thing here. Maybe this be like a library or pictures or windows or something like that. Maybe this is like a mosaic window or mosaic arts, different kinds of pamphlets, things like that. It depicts storage very well. Could just be storage. Very interesting. We have Ironworks of Misery. Oh boy. Oh boy. I would say spot on. Honestly. This is kind of what you would envision with the Ironworks of Misery. Yeah, it's kind of spot on. Realm, Sheltered Woods. That's the Red Forest, yes? So you've got a tree which looks to be extending over into like almost like our root looking house or something. That's what it looks like is a roof. Like a tree on the top or some sort of decoration of like antlers on top of a roof. To the inside of the roof, like a shelter that you can sit up there and sleep on. It comes down and around like that for you to get up. Here's the little bottom area. There's trees and everything else around. Hmm. This may or may not be a grave of some sort with like a sword sitting on top of it, maybe. Whatever your mind depicts. And that could be a door or a closet or a mirror or whatever. Oh my, is this the, yeah, suffocation pit? Yeah, I wonder why it picked something that looks like pigs, though. Very interesting indeed. I mean, it's about what it is. It's a suffocation pit. These look like wombats or pigs or something to me, though. And this looks almost like the detritus, the viscera of the bodies after they start spoiling and going bad, how they turn like black. Or it could be a tarp. What is this? Azerov's resting place. I mean, obvious coffin put up. Very nice little pillars and everything. Even though the Wraith's running around with Azerov's skull. But headless body up there. There's a little podium and all of that. Looks very nice. I wonder what this is, though. This looks very nice. Realm, Blood Lodge. I mean, yeah, a red lodge. And they even incorporated it into the side of a mountain. Well done. There ain't really much you can say about it. I mean, it's kind of like on the side of a mountain or something, and then it's into the mountain. What in the world is this map? Gas Heaven. Oh my god. Now this is like an extended version of Ironworks of Misery right here. Oh my god. Ironworks of Misery, Part 2. What it looks like from the outside. I do like how it kind of shows the gas, like there's a person here talking with either a robot or another person. There's a person working on a machine here, and all of this is gas as it goes by, filling up a room, coming down off the machines that are producing it, coming out of the furnace. It's starting to go up, it's starting to go around from the pollution and everything else that's in the room, from all of this going down. So it would be like Gas Heaven and Ironworks of Misery combined. I know where this is. Yep, Wrecker's Yard. um, Not necessarily a yard, but I understand what it was going for. I don't know why it says Wrecker's Yard and they immediately put it into a building. Even abstractly, that's kind of. I mean, it's perfect for the map, but how is it to know that there's an actual building and things surrounding it? I figured this would be an outside area that looks like this. So I guess this little portion right here, it kind of has, well, that looks like antifreeze coming out of an engine, but not bad. I would say this one is probably the least accurate one out of all of them, even though it has literally the car wrecks and things like that. It is inside when it says yard. And I know it's nitpicky, but wretched shop. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. You got your creepy shopkeepers, you got things scattered all about, etc., etc. This, I think it created a long time ago for somebody else's, and it's reusing the particular art that it posted once in the past. I think that's where this one's coming from. uh, fractured cowshed. I think we have another off base. I understand the fractures and all of that. It got the word fracture correct. So what I think that happens in all of this is it takes the first word. I think he needs to put fractured underscore cowshed to get both terms there. When he posts it like this, it takes the first word that you put and it goes off of that extractly. And then it may or may not reference the second word at some part in time. But it definitely uses the first word that you put in. And that being fractured. It picked up the fractured part. Everything in here is made of fractures of things. And I've noticed that everything's been inside of a building or happened to do with the building. So he obviously can select subcategories and things like that, which is why most of these are turning out like this. But it's only taken the first word. Rancid abattoir. Yeah, the rancid part, making it all red and bodies are hanging everywhere, things like that. I guess that's close. Not exactly, but if you look close enough, this kind of looks like a pirate ship. You know, you got your sails, your mast, the ship comes in, comes out to a point here. There's the little thing that goes on the end of it. There's a sail here, sail there. There's a person back there you can see abstractly. I don't know. I'm just trying to connect things together. These looks like bodies or demons of like just bloodied flesh and viscera everywhere. Rotten fields. I mean, yeah, this is a rotting field. It's got a whole bunch of dead, rotting things in it, just kind of chilling in the field as it goes all the way up to its extract. Sky and things like that. Sky, maybe mountains, could be fire, could be blood, who knows? Could be more rotting things. All of this could just be rot everywhere. So this one pulled rotting in fields, but it focuses heavily on the first word, rotted. So the theme must be chosen by the first word that's put to it. And then the second word, if it understands it in its logic banks or the words that are programmed in it, it makes something similar to that and incorporates it into the image. So theme, and then what the image is about. And if it doesn't understand what the word is, it might just pick a building setting by default. Speaking of, the Thompson house. So here, the obviously it can't pick up as well because it's the word the. But since it's the word the, that means it's probably fixates on one object, meaning all of this. I'm just spitballing, by the way. I do not know, but this is just from what I'm seeing. Kind of a how to use observation skills work, type thing. How I create a theory. But the, meaning one thing, is what it picked. It also doesn't have anything beyond the, so it puts it inside of like a building architect. So I think that's how this particular engine works if you pull it apart. I know some of you are like, you just enjoy the art. But I do want to pull this apart. I look at this because that's just me. I'm very observationalist. So it knows one object. Make it all one object. There is nothing supporting it, so it puts it inside of a building because it doesn't know what to actually do. This is where the building comes from. Thompson. Thompson is a name. It has no idea what Thompson is. It might pick up Thompson as a name, possibly, but I don't think it knows any idea what Thompson is. Names usually aren't implemented into this. So you get this just kind of abstract, drawing of like what looks to be like a deer or something else like that. And then you have the term house. So now it's pulling off of the keeping whatever, type of theme that you selected when you're pulling these abstract arts. The theme would go here, being, this kind of horror-esque, abstract horror-esque theme. And then house is what it's going to create. So you get a building, the meaning one object, Thompson, it does not know, and then house. So you have this little thing here creating the inside of a particular house. Here, you have this coming out of the top, which looks like a wolf or a cat here coming into another animal of some sort here. It comes out down to like an ear antler thing like this, going down, forming the complete house. Is dream the category? I wonder. Realm, Torment Creek. It goes off the term torment for being its overall thing that it's going off of. You can see things are out and about, really torn out, things coming through, water's flowing, things like that, which means it understood the word creek. So you have a regular creek being abstractly drawn here, and then a series of torment being added in, Things are jagged, coming in here, there, sticking out here, coming out this way, Things are just essentially sticking out of the river, tormenting it. If you would have put tormented body, you probably would have had like a body, like legs here. Here's a leg, here's a leg, here's the stomach, here's the tits, going up to the head, and then having things shooting out of the particular human. But since it's creek, it turned it into water. I'm not going to do any more going over things now. I'm just going to kind of skip through and actually enjoy the art because I do want to respect it for what it is. Disturbed Ward. Yeah, I mean, this is technically could be considered a ward, and then it has the very disturbed aspect over it with the filter and all of that. I'd give you that. Father Campbell's chapel. It loves using this particular background when it doesn't understand. You can see that it's a chapel, so it made a guy in a cloak and all of that, looking almost like a Templar from Assassin's Creed. Guy sitting on the side. This could be a bunch of umbrellas. This could be steps. This could be floor. This could be a bunch of doctrines and things, This could be a wax stamp. It could be mail. It could be paper. It could be a lot of things. This guy could be going up and preaching to a crowd, and these can be umbrellas. Lampkin Lake. I see where all the little dots of what seems to be light, it picked up the word lamp. And then you have people here. It doesn't seem to have gotten the lake aspect. I'm trying to look closely. I guess if it's underwater, this could technically be the top of the lake, and all of this scene could be underwater. That would make a lot more sense. because of the color of the stones and everything like that being that bluish tint. This is considered underwater, then yeah, I see it. And I guess it is whatever I want to see it as. It's abstract. The pale rose. I get it. This and then this. I get it. I'm not going to comment on what I understand about this particular thing because it gets into a subject that I don't want to talk about right now. But the name, the pale rose, and this part of the picture right here, I get it. That's kind of morbid though, but I get it. Grim Pantry. Yeah, I mean, a Grim Reaper ass looking person, and it's literally a pantry. I mean, what more can you say about that? Treatment theater. Um, it still wants to add in that little bit of that house treatment. I mean, I guess this can be considered like a bed or a couch that you can lay on during therapy and all of that for treatment. Everything could have cloths over it or a tarp over it. You can see like the beginning of instrument or machine that's used during treatment. I would have to say that this is one of the ones that kind of got a little bit off base compared to the other ones, but not too shabby. Mother's Dwelling. There is Mother. Looks like she's reading a book. And yeah, this is where she dwells. Oh my. Is this? Yep, the Temple of Purgation. Yeah, buddy. I knew what it was before I seen it. That's exactly what I would kind of picture. How did I know it was the Temple of Purgation? Well, one, it's a gigantic temple. I guess this could be the Yamaoka estate. I didn't see it as that the first time though, but I guess that can be considered Japanese and all of that. But no, the plague's mask and lanterns that she uses and things like that looks like this. So it called out to me plague. This is a temple, obviously. Not a Japanese house. This is specifically a temple. Then, as you scroll down, you see the different people that have their faces covered. All of their faces are covered in some sort of way. This guy's looks like he's turned around backwards. But the people you can see have a heavy cover over their faces. The steps leading up to the particular temple with the door and all of that, the particular symbols and things like this, screams plague. Screams plague. I didn't think about the Yamaoka estate either. I might have confused it with that, possibly, but this is a temple. I no idea. There's children there though. Badham preschool. Duh, there's children there. That's your duh. Duh. That's me being an absolute moron. It'd either be Midwich or it'd be Badham. Obviously, there's children around, preschool, things like that. Funny thing about it is Freddy Krueger's map, and there is kind of this shadowy looking figure that has like blood on his hand and things like that. So those you don't know about the lore of Freddy Krueger, he used to live underneath the elementary school and he used to take care of the kids. The kids he would take down, and if you play the actual map in Dead by Daylight where Freddy's little bed is, there used to be a basement, essentially. Not as big as the basement that they have on the map, obviously, but a small basement down there with a secret compartment behind Freddy's bed. And he used to take children back in there, and he used to, for the sake of everything, he used to torture them. I'm just going to say the word torture. He used to torture them and do all kinds of other things, exploit them, torture them, things like that. He eventually got caught. He was chased to a factory with by the parents. One guy threw a Molotov through the factory window, and Freddy burnt to death as he ran out and fell over. The children who had these repressed memories didn't remember what was going on. And they started feeling bad because they were like, oh no, I lied. He didn't really do that, They couldn't remember the trauma. So they thought they were dirty liars and all of that, and they thought that he was going after them in their dreams and all of that. Because they were, they lied, they did something they weren't supposed to do or anything like that. So they go all the way down to Freddy's basement, and then they find the photos of all the photos and things that Freddy's, done, kept, etc., etc. And they found out that, hey, it wasn't a lie. All of it actually happened. And then, like every other Freddy Krueger movie, they find out that they can pull Freddy into the real world, and then they slaughter him. Movie end. Late spoiler warning, by the way. Realm the game. Something tells me this thing was thinking more Game of Thrones, but you said the word the first. The meaning one particular object, and whenever it filled in the one particular object, it then filled in the rest with these small pieces that you generally see. So this, all of this was originally one object. And then, like I said, the rest was filled in with pieces like this. So you got to kind of ignore this orangey white background because that's just a generic fill in from the word the. Game wise, then you look at, what's left over and try to make sense out of it. And that does not look like a game. It did not pick up the word game very good there. Almost Game of Thronesy. Family residence. This is the Yamioka estate, but it's not Japanese themed. This is just a regular house. Very accurate though, for just being a regular house and abstract. Stairs leading up, multiple rooms, windows, etc., etc. Then you have a fog kind of covering areas of it. All the way down to there. Maybe that's just fog too. Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to wrap it up. Alright. Wealth. Sanctum of Wrath. Yeah. A lot of people either bowing down or a lot of people have gotten clapped. You have somebody there looking like they're very sad, maybe a little bit of afraid. Maybe they just slaughtered somebody. And this person here, either a guy carrying another guy or something else is going on in this particular area. um, Mount Ormond Resort. Mount being the first word is what this particular is the depiction of. Mount or mountain. Ormond, it has no idea what Ormond is. But you did add another word over it, which gives you the resort. So Mount being the mountains, didn't understand what Ormond is, which gives you that blotchy dot looking, that little background that you always see. That is exactly what this is. Then resort got added to it, so it added in a resort, an abstract over top of that particular wall that it usually makes, and it ends up looking like an actual resort. Interesting. I like that. That one's pretty good. The underground complex. I mean, it is underground. This looks like Dark Souls 3, bro. The little middle where you have the people standing there in the different catacombs, and you can go around to the outer ring that has like the throne and everything else on it. This is Dark Souls 3, bro. When things get too real. And I know I'm short on time, but I also want to give everything and everybody that posts, the respect they deserve. I'm not the type of guy that's like, I want to cover this, but I don't have a lot of time. So, I'm going to cover it anyway as best I can. And then at the end, go into this panic and scroll through everything and get out. Now, if the concept's not interesting or anything like that, then, I probably will quit halfway through and be like, not very interesting, not very good. But this is decent. Very nice. I'm going to give it the time that it needs, even though I'm short on time. Dead Dog Saloon. Yeah, buddy. If it ain't, oh my God, they should have took some, taken a page or two out of this. You know how awesome that would be to walk in to have just this conglomeration of a rug sitting on the side that you could move around and possibly even climb up. Have the saloon a little bit decorated, have stairs that you can go up and vault over, and rooms and an upstairs area and all of this other stuff. To be fair, I would accepted this as the Huntress's map too. This is Midwich Elementary School. I was gonna say a library of some sort, but essentially the same thing. I mean, school. You got tables, you got books, things like that. Looks like the school has a hole that it needs to patch, but I mean, yeah, you can kind of see where the things come from. Problem you have here is the Midwich. It doesn't understand Midwich, but it does understand elementary school. So that's where you get the abstract tables and things like that, with kind of the weird backlighting, things like that, with a little bit of the in the back. Hmm. This can't be RPD, right? It is RPD. So at first I was like, if the trickster had a map, this would be it. But then I was like, nah, that's RPD, obviously. It looks like police cars. It's got, like the police colors. It's modern. It's in a building. These kind of look like police officers standing on the side. Things like that. You got your different either bench or the beginning of a stairway or something, the signs, everything else that pops up. This is definitely RPD. This looks like the artist's map. Eerie of Crows. Well, it doesn't look like the artist's map, but it depicts the artist's map. It's got everything here for being the Erie down here, and then the screen's full of crows. I mean, what more could you ask for? you know, you can even see a little bit of a woman on the side. It's actually kind of funny. If you was the type, the artist, and explain it enough. I think that this engine, as it's set now, could probably give you a very good abstract drawing of the artist that would actually probably be worth quite a bit of money in the Dead by Daylight community. And then we come to the end. So instead of panicking and ending things off, I just took an extra 6 minutes to keep things flowing nicely. And that's what you try to explain to people that panic. You can panic and crap, run around, do all kinds of craziness to try to hurry up, but in trying to hurry up, you're just making yourself later. Doing things slower by moving faster sometimes isn't the answer. Take your time, finish what you're doing, take your time doing everything that you're doing. There is no reason that should make you feel like you have to rush to get something done. Unless, it's an obvious emergency. If somebody's on their deathbed, then every second essentially counts. You don't want to be that guy that shows up, super late. But I mean, if I haven't went on the rants and everything about taking your time, I would have spent an extra 5 minutes. Could that 5 minutes be life or death? Yes. But if I would have gotten there 5 minutes early, do you think it would have mattered? You know? Because even if that particular person literally dies as you bust into the room, what's to make you think that, when you came running into the room, running, huffing and puffing, and caught them off guard? What if that just initial shock was the thing that did them in? You know? If you would have just walked in normally and pulled yourself together, how do you know that wasn't the thing that ended them? You could have been 15 minutes early if you still arrived the same way. That happened. But if it does come down to you being 5 minutes late and you couldn't see the person off that you loved or anything like that because of a 5 minute delay, you got to keep in mind that you would have only gotten 5 minutes to talk to that person. There's not a lot that you can say in 5 minutes when you have somebody that's, legitimately dying in front of you. There's going to be a lot of tears, a lot of crying, a lot of I love yous and things like that. And, you're not really going to be able to essentially say everything that you wanted to say. You're still going to have that little bit of regret to that dying person. You become to, man, I didn't get to tell them the goodbye, to, yeah, I talked to them and all of that, but it wasn't enough time. I still didn't get to tell them goodbye and that I love them and all of this other stuff I wanted to tell them. I didn't get to tell them about my life and that it'll be okay where they're going and, comfort them and all, like, being short on time, you're going to miss things. Yeah, you got to see them as they died. Is that necessarily a good thing? Do you really want to be there watching the person that you love life fade from their eyes? Talking to them's one thing, but you're going to be there for when it happens. That full trauma of the lights going out of their eyes and how people actually die is going to come to light. And a lot of people don't understand that. Most people are sheltered. And when somebody dies, they generally, come and they say, oh, so and so died. And then you cry and then you go to their funerals and things like that. It's a completely different story when you see how an actual person dies that don't die in their sleep or anything like that, like a fully conscious person. Most of the time, it ain't like the movies, bro. It's not like the movies. They don't just, fade out of existence or close their eyes and then that's the end of it. A lot more fucked up things generally happen, especially if they have underlying conditions that lead to this death. You can see some fucked up shit when people actually die. depending on, you know, how they were when they were alive, how their health are, what they had, etc., etc. Especially if it's one of the situations where you have to pull the plug when they're on life support and things like that, because, I mean, you're essentially stopping all of their body functions. You can get some real fucked up things that happen. And they can really screw you up on the inside if you see some of those. But keep in mind that, yeah, you might not have been there when they died, but it might be the best for you if you're not used to that type of things. Save your innocence when you can save your innocence. Trust me, there are people that I know that have been there when the shit's hit the fan and the person's died. And still to this day, it fucks them up. We talk about it occasionally. Still fucks them up to this day. But either way, morbid art leading to a morbid ending. Thank you, anybody that stops by today. I'm gonna go ahead and get off here. I'm already about 12 minutes over, which I guess I'm not gonna really do any external work today. When I stayed up late in the morning, I got most of that crap done for the day. So, plus taking a break off every once in a while is good. I might just go chill, maybe put in a couple more hours of work. Nothing too major though. I'm gonna supplement my lifestyle. Hopefully, you'll supplement your lifestyle. And as always, stay cool, stay calm, stay classy, stay collected. And the next time somebody pisses you off, just smile at them and treat them like they are the love of your life. So, ever flowing patience, love, kindness, respect, and make them feel like, you know, you can't live without them. Show them the most love you've ever showed somebody ever in their life. Some people's angry just because they're jealous and they don't have enough of that in their life. Other people will just get freaked out and they'll walk away. Other people will just call you weird and walk away. Just try it once. You get very interesting reactions if you can record it and then post it on YouTube. Some people will actually break down and be like, I'm sorry, man, I didn't mean it and all of that. Other people will just be like, you're weird, get away from me. And they'll panic because you're not giving them the response that they're trying to solicit from you. Other people will break down and start talking about the things that are bothering them. They just were needing somebody to, you know, let a little bit of frustration out on. You can do this in person, you can do this online, you can do this, you know, in a bunch or a multitude of different ways. Think about it. Just think before you argue back. Sometimes people are just doing it just for the memes, because that's the thing nowadays for the younger generation. It's just to insult each other. That's how they flirt. They come in, they talk shit to each other, and then they're friends, or they move on to the next person. And that's their entertainment. Just think about it. Use your brain instead of your fists if the situation calls for it. Till then, I'm QTASTIC, and I'll see you guys next time. Friday Night Funkin', I might hop onto that sometime here either shortly or later on in the night. I'm not sure how I'm feeling though.